Yes, sir.
Any other books you would recommend?
Any books I'd recommend, I think a lot of it depends on your area of interest. What are topics that you readily engage with?
Socialization.
Okay.
Socializing.
Okay, just in regards to like how people interact and things along those lines.
Yeah, it could be anywhere around the world.
I'll tell you what would be possibly a good fit. And it was part of the motivation or inspiration behind Quotes and Notes. There's a book titled As a Man Thinketh. And what makes that book so important, which kind of ties in with like the socialization piece, is the book number one is maybe 60 pages long. And you think something with that type of title is gonna be this big, massive book, but no, it's really, I ordered that book years ago. It was like $5 or $6. It's probably, the price point is probably a little bit higher now. But it is part of the inspiration behind Quotes and Notes, and I think I allude to it in the foreword. What you put in your head is gonna show up in some way, shape, or form. So while it goes on a different tangent than what I do in Quotes and Notes, I think that could be a good starting point. Now, if you're gonna go deeper in regards, let's say, like your social sciences or things along those lines, I would suggest that you start with the search of social sciences. Maybe it's something in psychology based, maybe it's something that is sociology based. So psychology is looking at interpreting individual behavior, sociology is group behavior, but a lot of those theories and principles overlap. So I would say, and of course authors are gonna pitch their books, but stepping outside of that, I would say consider getting a copy of As a Man Thinketh, and then that could be a bridge for exploring books tackling more along psychology, so you understand how the individual mind works, and then sociology, which is interpreting group behavior, but again, a lot of those theories and principles are gonna overlap. That would be my suggestion. And not only seeking out, quote, the traditional stuff that's pushed in academia, but look at alternatives like Zhuangzi Kunjufu, who did a lot of his work with education-based research. You may want to look at some of his work, especially when it looks at how Black men are treated K through 12 and navigating through that. So that might be eventually, an author that you get to. You may want to look at Derek Bell's Faces at the Bottom of the Well, who talks a lot about his logic and thought process when he was on the faculty at Harvard and basically focused on some of the discrimination and lack of diversity. This was back in the 90s, so you may want to look at that. Trying to think of another one, which would be an interesting tangent of how people think and why they think that way. Tying into baseball, A Well-Paid Slave by Curt Flood. Curt Flood is easily responsible for the free agency system that you have in Major League Baseball. Make a long story short, baseball contracts were 1 year renewable, and you could be traded for any reason. And he got traded from the St. Louis Cardinals to the Philadelphia Phillies, refused to go. He was in the prime of his career, probably on track to be on the Hall of Fame. Make a long story short, because of his legal fight, he sacrificed his career but created free agency. So now, when you fast forward to when Major League Baseball free agency started in 1974, 1975, and you see how salaries have skyrocketed in Major League Baseball, like the first $1 million contract was like in the mid to late 70s. And now when you look at the sport, what the biggest contract that was just signed was what Shohei Ohtani's deal, 10 years, $700 million, even though a lot of that money's deferred. The reason why baseball players and arguably other professional athletes in North America are making the money they're making is because of Curt Flood. But the irony is the attorney who did the legal work is in the Hall of Fame. The baseball commissioner at the time is in the Hall of Fame, but Curt Flood is not. The best recognition that Curt Flood has is in the Ring of Honor for the St. Louis Cardinals. So his daughter, Shelley Flood, has been advocating for years in getting Kurt Flood in the major leagues, and quite frankly, he should, because otherwise, player salaries would not be what they are. There's no way, like I said, Ohtani's getting a 10-year, $700 million deal. There's no way an Aaron Judge is getting a 9-year, $360 million deal. There's no way a Mookie Betts at the time that after he got traded from Boston to Los Angeles Dodgers, at the time got one of the largest extensions on record, like 12 years and $400 million. There's no way that would happen. And then that trickled down into what you see with NBA salaries, what you see to varying degrees with NFL salaries, especially now that players are realizing that, when people hold out, they're holding out because the signing bonus is the biggest guaranteed money. So you notice how players are basically bucking back to get as much of their salaries guaranteed as possible. So look at what the Falcons did with Kirk Cousins. His deal's 4 years, $180 million, but $100 million is guaranteed. Worst thing that he'll do is walk away with basically more than 60% of what he signed for. But that stuff wouldn't happen if it weren't for Kurt Flood. And if you want to really take a psychological analysis, why is it that the attorney and the commissioner are celebrated, but the person who took a stand didn't? And you can read between the lines on that end, because that's a conversation nobody wants to have. So hopefully that kind of answers your question. I went on a tangent, but from having done a little bit of research on that, and a few years ago I actually interviewed Shelley Flood, who's still fighting that fight. And there's a number of people who are still fighting that fight, and to be point blank, he should be in the Hall of Fame. At the height of his career, and I'll say this to wrap this up, think about it. At the height of your career, does it sound familiar? You sacrificed everything. If all you did was comply at the height of your career, the peak of your career, there's no telling what money you would have made, fame you made. But the man took a stand, sacrificed his career, never played another game. The only parallel I can think about in sports is Ali. Many people remember Muhammad Ali, conscientious objector regarding the Vietnam War. He got fortunate and was able to fight again. But in principle, they did the same thing at the peak of their career. When they were untouchable, they took a stand. Ali got a chance to fight again. Kurt Flood never played a game again. And that leads you to ask the question in regards to like taking a stand. Are you willing, talk about, I wouldn't let so and such do something. Yeah, but these are folks that didn't have to do anything, and they chose to, and they were fully cognizant of what that would mean. Now, I'm just using that adage through sports, but you can kind of read between the lines. Just history, we talk about we stand on the shoulders of giants. So there's many people who we will never know about that took a stand or advocated or were good stewards or opened their mouth and what have you, knowing what those consequences could have been, but they did it anyway. And how many of us in this room are willing to do that? That might be a good social, psychological challenge. How many of us are really willing to take a stand where we can lose everything that we hold dear? And the only reason you do that is because you're standing on your faith. And you really believe what you believe, that there are greater rewards when you leave this place. How many are really willing to take that type of stand? It's easy to talk about it in Sunday school, easy to talk about it in midweek service. But how are you willing to take that stand?